Ladies and gentlemen, we have an updated S-tier list for funnels and conversion mechanisms that we're going to be going through today that are working for the businesses generating $1 million months. If you're new here, it's all we talk about are been there, done that lessons of the $1 million month earners that we've worked with. Over the years, we've currently helped 41 different businesses hit these $1 million months. We don't make any income claims. We just pass down the lessons from these businesses to you. We're not saying you're going to watch this video and make $1 million months possible. Hell, the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics says that 0.1% of all businesses ever achieve $10 million a year, let alone the even smaller quantity than that hit $12 million a year, the big $1 million months. All we do, just to be clear, is hand down lessons to you. So if you're here for that, welcome in. It's a pleasure to have you. And of course, if you're already a subscriber, welcome back. This one's gonna be a banger. So this is an updated video. I've made one of these in the past, but I like to keep you guys on current game, not just past game. And some things have changed from the last time that I made this very video. So without further ado, we're gonna jump in funnel by funnel and rank it. If you are new to how these list ranking videos work, let me put you on game. We rank the highest tiered, highest working, highest probable to hit funnels in the S tier. And then we work our way down. A, B, C, and D tier are below that. D tier in this case would represent funnels that we would arguably never try, things that we have tried that just fail to work, things that work with a very low probability. And I want to be clear when I say this. Some of these still crush, they just don't crush at a high rate for every business that we try them with. So I just want to be really clear on some disclaimers. I might rank something that you might absolutely sweep with and just milk profits with. But a majority of the time it doesn't hit for everybody else, so therefore I rank it lower, is what it is. Let's get started with the first one, call funnels. I want to be super clear when I say this. I absolutely love call funnels. Call funnels are so good. Just so we're all on the same page, you drive traffic from a direct response ad over to a page that has a VSL on it and encourages somebody to book a call, typically after filling out an application, expressing the fact that they're qualified, and then being able to book. If that is what you define a call funnel to be, I rank that in the highest possible tier of S, okay? Call funnels are the shit. If you fail to make call funnels work, it's typically because you have an awful show rate and you are failing to implement all the modern best practices like the hammer them content remarketing strategy, breakout videos on your confirmation page and other confirmation page best practices, value dense email sequences, which are taking a lot of those breakout videos, hammer them concepts, and putting them inside of your value driven follow-up emails, okay? And in addition to all that, having all the best practices in place with trust assets and sales assets for your salespeople to be able to use, to be able to retarget those people with and text them manually as well, along with a whole slew of other best practices. Call funnels are the shit. They work a majority of the time. When we initially come into a business, it's a go-to strategy. It's a go-to funnel for us. And when we implement our stack of what increases the probability for it to work, more than half of the time by far is it absolutely crushing for us, especially with anything that's high ticket, okay? We love call funnels, but I do want to give a sad set of condolences to those that have not updated their best practices to the modern set of standards that you have to implement across these funnels in order to actually milk them and get them extremely profitable and working for you. So if you have inconsistency on it, I have a whole bunch of videos on my channel that you can go check out, all dedicated to call funnels and those current best practices. I also have breakout videos on my YouTube channel dedicated to some of those topics independently on their own so we can expand on those topics from how much I believe in them. Okay, next one, live webinars. Absolute S tier. I want to be fair in saying live webinars in my previous video, they were ranked at an A tier because they just weren't working that well at that time. Time can change everything, can it? In this case, live webinars were resurrected, right? It's not that they completely died. We still had a bunch of people that were crushing it with live webinars during the dark ages over the last several years where they weren't ripping a majority of the time. And that's when we ranked them lower. They were still working, but they weren't working a majority of the time. Now, I mean, holy shit. Like if you're a good one-to-many presenter and you have the skill sets that webinars require you to have, live webinars fuck super hard. They're awesome. And it's very important to note that when executed at a high frequency, specifically to cold audiences, they fuck even harder, okay? I am in love with clients and my inner circle members that can take cold traffic seriously with live webinar strategies. It is such an effective way to convert people who have no idea who you are into buyers at a high rate, okay? because it is a value-dense presentation that gives people a lot of information, increases their awareness, increases their interest levels, and gives them an opportunity to buy, typically through salespeople rather than direct to checkout. That's what all our high-ticket product and service-based businesses are doing nowadays with live webinars. And I want to be really clear when I say this is a great transition and bridge. Auto webinars, I'm actually going to rank at a B, okay? Now, this might sound a little crazy because we do have a handful of clients where what they'll do is they'll make the front part live and then they'll switch to an auto webinar for like the remaining 90% of the presentation, and then they'll sit there and they'll be their own moderator in their chats and like answer questions. And it's an interesting strategy, but it's not technically automated in itself. It's a majority automated, but not the entirety of it. Automated webinars used to be awesome. Like there was a period of time where we could just run an on-demand webinar, not even just like a standard auto webinar where you fake it being live at a certain date and time, like a literal on-demand webinar where somebody could just opt in and immediately watch it within a few minutes. Those were awesome. But unfortunately, like they're just not working that well right now. Same thing with auto webinars. Even if you stage it to be live, what we're noticing, and this is why I don't think that they're ranked higher on my list here, is we're seeing up to 1/3, think about this, 1/3, 33% of the people who buy a high ticket product or service watching more than one webinar to buy. So the issue becomes when they go back and they opt in for the same webinar again as that 1/3 of total buyers, and they realize, oh, this is just the same shit. Like they don't buy, you know, and they don't get the additional information that they need. What they look for, and this is very interesting, like I think short form content really changed the game with how the live webinars were resurrected and like brought back to life. It's not just like the same live webinars that they used to be either. They are different. Like they require a whole different set of best practices to actually work well at scale for our $1 million a month clients. They are all doing them live and they're doing them differently than they used to. And what we're seeing is a big part of like what's making people show up and actually enjoy these things and buy from them as a result is the fact that it's live. And like I said, when you get a majority of people that end up buying that are recurring webinar viewers, it's like lowers trust for some reason. You know, it's turning people off. That's the best way to put it. As a result of that, we are not endorsing auto webinars nearly as much as what we used to. I just want to be fair in saying like, look, I'm a marketer where I don't want to be right, dude. I just want to make money. If a client comes to me and they're already doing incredible numbers with an auto webinar and they just want to scale it up, I am a-okay with that and obviously happy to do it. But I'm just simply telling you a majority of the time, that's not the case. It's a minority of the time that that's happening. And it's not even like a big minority. It's a very small minority of the time that we see that kind of thing. And I assure you, we got visibility on it. Okay, one of the newest S-tier list members is the challenge funnel. My goodness, I could borderline rank this in A. I'm very close to ranking it in A, but I'll tell you why I ranked it in S. The lump sums that a challenge funnel generates are fucking generational, okay? It is insane what challenge funnels can do when you put your balls on the table. It is wild the results that they can produce. We had a challenge funnel case study video that we published here on the channel with a client that spent $292,000 in ad spend. They on the front end with ticket sales were 1.9x profitable going into the challenge, making just shy of $600,000 from just ticket sales and the little upsells on the back end of the ticket purchases, and then made $3.4 million in the actual challenge itself, selling a $10,000 offer. That's a total of almost $4 million in that single challenge. Since then, as you can imagine, we've had plenty of other clients take advantage and risk some cash on challenges and have gone big that have seen awesome results. I want to be clear when I say this though. The reason it's like borderline in A tier are two things. Number one, it takes a fucking incredible amount of work. Like it is exhausting. It is not light work at all. It is tremendous in terms of the workload that it takes. And a lot of our bigger deals, especially like the ones that take it real serious, they're spending like $90,000 to $120,000 just on the cost of like a really, really good virtual studio to shoot it in with like paid MCs, guest speakers coming in. And it's more like a virtual event is what it feels like rather than just like a traditional challenge funnel. My inner circle members who typically don't risk as much in this case, some of them do to be fair, but most of them start at like a smaller level. Like we had one, I had to press the living shit out of him. I won't say his name because I've got a lot of respect for the guy. But to be clear, like I had to press the shit out of him to go big after he got a phenomenal return on his first challenge. The guy spent like $7,000 and he made $200,000 on a challenge funnel. A lot of that in terms of the total buyers came from his organic following. He pushed it pretty hard organically. But in that following challenge that he wanted to do, he didn't want to risk nearly as much. So just to show and demonstrate, like not everybody is risking, $300,000 on a challenge and still seeing awesome returns with it. There's people that are risking smaller amounts and still seeing like really good ROI. This is just, again, like a resurrected strategy that for a long period of time wasn't really worth the risk and wasn't necessarily worth the time, but now it's fucking paying dividends. It is awesome. So big fan of challenges. The reason that I'm borderline putting it on an A tier, and this is the other reason, is it is outside of the fact it's so challenging to get a challenge funnel, just so much work. We're just seeing that it can't be executed at a really consistent pace. Like our biggest client that's risking the most on this is spending $1 million in a month. That's the plan, $1 million in a month on a challenge. And the goal is to do a challenge every single month, with 6 of those challenges in the year being the same topic and the other 6 challenges in the year being an alternative topic. And I just want to be clear, like $1 million in a month on a challenge is insane. That's the only person that we've seen commit to the idea. And again, it's just an idea. This has not been executed at this point. This is just an idea that this person's willing to commit to of doing a monthly. Everybody else that we've seen that's done a challenge or considering doing a challenge due to the exhaustive level of work that it takes is more so doing it like twice a year or quarterly, if that. We feel like if we push people to do it quarterly, that's a huge win. However, a lot of our bigger clients, like they're just not making the time for it to do it at a higher frequency. It's being done at most typically twice a year, or some of them even worse than that, once a year. So that's what makes it borderline A tier for me. It's, a relatively big risk just due to the exhaustive labor behind getting it done. And then 2, it puts you in a position where you just realize, like right after you do it, you're like,
holy shit, like there's no way I'm gonna be able to do that again in that short of a duration of time.
It also takes a little bit longer of a promotional cycle to like truly get enough people into it. If you don't give yourself enough time, there's gonna be things that fuck up. Like you might launch a challenge and your paid funnel just doesn't work well. And we've had guys, as an example, in our inner circle, they've tested launching a paid challenge and they had to pivot to a free challenge in order to get it to work. We've had other guys where they've launched a paid challenge, had a under 1.0 ROAS, and then they had to make a giant change to the page, and then they were at a 3x ROAS on the front end of their ticket sales, with their AOV being lifted a little bit from the back end upsells. It's like, simply put, if you only gave yourself 30 days and you actually tried to run it monthly, you probably wouldn't have enough time to fix what's not working anymore. And then 2, you'd probably fatigue it. And then 3, you would just be exhausted because it takes a fuckload of work. So again, I'm ranking it S tier just due to the fucking lump that it produces. But I gotta be honest, I kind of want to rank it an A instead of an S. Okay, book funnels. Book funnels are a variation of low ticket to high ticket. I'm teetering here. I gotta be honest, I'm teetering. I'm between an A and a B. I'm not that certain as to whether I can rank it an A, just due to the fact that it works when it works, and it typically works for my larger deals, like people that are extremely well known, people that are like big personal brands or big businesses that have big dollars. Like we had a client, as an example, they spent $43,000 in the month of May. They generated $322,000 from the upsells in the month of May. They converted 7% of their total buyers into a $12,000 AOV upsell. And these people just started with a free book and maybe a higher AOV. So like, again, that's super scalable. That's awesome. That fucks hard. But at the same time, it's also limiting because I don't see a lot of people willing to take big risks on book funnels and even start it. It's a minority of the time that people run it, period. A majority of the time that it's run, it works and it becomes like a cornerstone funnel. And that makes me want to put it at an A, just based on the fact that, again, a majority of the time when tested, it works. So that's what's going to make me place it there. But I just want to be really clear. This can be a borderline B tier argument, because it's like just you don't have a lot of willingness to execute it, and not every business is technically like applicable to have the ability to execute it. There's some service businesses where I can see it makes no sense to have a book. Like in one of our recent videos that we've posted on this channel, I went through some content and there was a gentleman who has a $35,000 to $250,000 a year service. It's like a wardrobe service. Come to your house, obviously do your measurements as a custom tailor, build you out an entire wardrobe full of sports jackets and suits and really nice stuff. But at the end of the day, like, does that make sense for that guy to have a book funnel? Like, probably not. You get what I mean? So again, it's a funnel that works a majority of the time when it's applicable to run. Does that make sense? But a minority of the time, is it necessary or makes sense to run, So, rank it where you rank it in your list, but my list, that thing's awesome. I love it. Okay, live events. First of all, Again, we kind of have an argumentative point here as to whether this goes in the S tier list or the A tier list. Live events are even more exhausting than challenge funnels, okay? And I gotta keep it real. Even just based from that, I think I'm gonna put it in the A tier. But talk about lumps, okay? I'm gonna give you a story that I just wanna add a fucking income disclaimer to, an earnings disclaimer prior to even saying it. This level of result is so uncommon. This has literally been the only instance in my entire career of being a marketer in my life that I've ever heard of this level of result and had a client that produced this level of result at that. And it's, again, extremely uncommon. This is not the norm. I'll talk more about the norm here in a minute, but wow, does this argumentatively make me really want to put it in an S tier. I had a client that did a joint live event with one of his longtime business partners, and they did $19 million off this live event. $19 million. Like, that's fucking insane for the level of lump sum that a live event can produce. I've had $1 million a month trophy earners that have been in my Inner Circle program in Australia that traveled around to different parts of the United States, Canada, Europe, but mainly the United States was where it typically worked best for him. And he's since been able to replicate it and make it work well in Australia. And he just did live events. And like once a month, he'd have a live event. Sometimes when he was traveling, he would do smaller live events. And he was clearing $1 million months. And he was doing phenomenal. He would typically get a big guest speaker, somebody who would pay like $50,000 to $100,000 to come and speak, you know, promote the living shit out of it and try to be profitable going into the event. And then obviously have an upsell after, you know, presenting great information and like just charging the environment with a strong positive emotion. It's incredible what you can do with live events. However, I rank it as an A tier for two reasons. Number one, again, it's so exhausting. If you've ever coordinated a live event, even if it's small, dude, like we do quarterly masterminds for our Inner Circle program, along with one-on-one weekly group calls, our access, unlimited access at that, to Jeremy AI, which is trained on literally 4.2 million data points. It's updated on every single thing that I know today and record today and document today the following morning. It's as real time as it gets. But for that offer, for our Inner Circle offer, where we do our quarterly masterminds, I have to do masterminds 4 times a year, once every quarter, okay? And those are all in person, they're streamed virtually, they're recorded, and then they're uploaded into our training libraries for all of our Inner Circle members to view ongoing. Those, even just those have like at most maybe 100-ish people that come out of everybody that's in the group. You know, we usually get like maybe 2/3 of the total people that are gonna join in and like arrive, give or take which one of those 4 it is throughout the year. Even those, exhausting, right? I've had clients that have thrown 2,000 to 5,000 person, the largest one being like 10,000 people, in-person events. It is insane how long it takes. It takes like 6 months, you know? 3 months if you want to like really run it tight, to coordinate all these vendors and contractors and like the speakers and like sell out the event, you know, and depending on how big you go, the more time you need. And there is just, especially given the time of year, a lot of fluctuations you can experience from an advertising perspective in the ability to sell it out. But boy, oh boy, oh boy, do they fucking rip if you do it right. However, you got to do it right. So if you don't do it right, you're not going to get nearly that level of result of going even just a few $1 million at one time. It's a skill to be able to present successfully and strategically know when to do what, to be able to convert a large quantity or even a small quantity of people into buyers at that event. It is, it's not for the weak, it's not for the newbies, it's not for the novices. It is, again, a very skilled funnel, and that's why unfortunately, it just doesn't fall into the ranks of the S tier as a result of that. Phenomenal, but a minority of the time does it absolutely crank, and just due to its infrequency and severity of workload, you know, it's just not something I can choose to rank in the S tier. Okay, low ticket to high ticket. This one's easy for me. This feels like a teeter-totter between the A and B, mainly because a majority of the time we're seeing that, yes, it works, okay? But a minority of the time is it run, and I don't know, man, it makes me want to put it in the A tier due to its consistency and how well it performs, so I think I'm gonna place it there. But I'll tell you, you gotta do it right. Like, most people really fuck this up. When they sell something low ticket and then they try to ascend people to high ticket, the issue becomes that they are not taking something from the main product, breaking it off and selling it low ticket. Okay, instead what they're doing is they're just making up some random shit to sell low ticket that has no congruency to the high ticket thing that they want to upsell the person. Even worse than that, they'll pick something that sabotages the high ticket sale by selling something low ticket that takes far too long to get a result with. The key with the low ticket products is to pick something that has an immediate high impact result that aligns to the main thing that you want to upsell the person. The faster they get the result with the low ticket thing, the faster the sales cycle is going to be for the high ticket thing. The more people that you sell the low ticket thing to that get a result, period, the higher the probability is that you're going to get people to buy the high ticket thing. So again, not S tier as a result of people having a high rate of fucking it up if they do it wrong. But for the people who do it right, a majority of the time it absolutely rips. However, just a minority of the time are people doing it, period. Most people will do things like call funnels, webinars, challenge funnels. Those are like the core funnels that people are gonna run most often. And rightfully so. I mean, dude, they're S tier funnels, right? Rightfully so, right? But low ticket can be great for liquidating some of the ad spend, right? Let's use the example you're operating at scale where you're already spending a couple $100,000 a month on ads, or even if you're just spending tens of thousands a month on ads and you wanna start increasing your ROAS and driving more profitability, a great conversion mechanism and funnel strategy to do that is something that would liquidate some of the front end ad spend and therefore increase your profitability because all the sales that happen on the back end are just pure profit or pretty fucking close to pure profit. So any kind of funnel that's higher ROAS blended together at a high rate of spend with all of your other cash burning kind of fronting cash funnels like call funnels, live webinars, or free challenge funnels, free events, etc. These types of low ticket to high ticket funnels become accelerants for profitability. That's why we love them. That's why I believe it belongs in the A tier list. However, again, just not a lot of people are executing it with ease, so not an S tier funnel by any means. Okay, quiz funnels. I'm gonna argue on this one. This one can belong really in almost any one of these tiers because it's essentially like a lead magnet to a degree, where what you're doing is you're trying to give people an opportunity to self-qualify what product might be best. So as an example, like if you have a few different offers and you want people to come through framed that the offer you're gonna sell them on makes sense as a result of the answers and you know what questions you asked them and what answers they provided that led them to like that product being for them or that service being for them. Sure, like that framing can help a lot to convert traffic. But at the same time, like you can really fuck that up, especially if you don't have a wide range of offers or a suite of offers, or the questions don't come through and give people that frame, you know? It just feels more like an application funnel. You can really fuck up a quiz funnel. But at the same time, like give or take the specific product or service that you're running for, quiz funnels can be awesome. But I gotta be honest, like I don't think they belong in an S by any means, nor do I think they even belong in an A. I believe they're more like an auto webinar in the B category. You're fronting cash, you know, you're pushing people through something that can make sense for the right types of high ticket product and service based businesses, but it's not a majority of high ticket product and service businesses that really this type of conversion mechanism makes sense for. For the right ones, awesome, rips, great. But again, for a majority, and that's a minority of people, it's gonna be the right one for. For a majority of folks, it's like, it's just not really gonna do what it's chalked up to do for the most part. However, whether you know or don't know if it's right or wrong for you, it can still be worth a test. But I also wanna disclose, like, it's just not high on the list of things to test. That's also why it's in the B tier. It's not like you go from, okay, call funnel, live webinar, challenge funnel, live events, low ticket to high ticket, and then you're like, oh, let's do a book funnel. There's other funnels that you're much more probable to run before you ever just say out loud,
all right, dude, let's go run a quiz funnel. You know what I mean?
If and when that does happen, and again, you're the right type of high ticket product and service business for it, yes, it makes sense and it absolutely fucks hard. But not a majority of the time, and it's not even applicable a majority of the time to run. It's also just low on the list of things that like you're gonna have a lot of willingness to try and test in the first place. Okay, this one is a little controversial because we have several $1 million a month businesses. We have a lot of Inner Circle members, as an example, that use DM ads. And DM ads are awesome. Okay, they are. But there are a lot of limitations to DM ads, okay? It is the number one funnel type that I see have a hard ceiling right around like 200 to 300K a month. That's the most common ceiling that I see. Are there people that make more money with DM ads than that? Yes, absolutely. But it is also one of the most volatile and vulnerable strategies that I've seen. Meaning once you get up to that ceiling, it's typically a ceiling that is imposed in a very weird way. You might start dealing with some inconsistency with the platform. So as an example, let's say you're running DM ads on Facebook and Instagram, which is the most common placements to run these DM ads on. You're gonna potentially come across some, as an example, messaging violations from your setters following up too aggressively and breaking the rules that exist, like the 7-day non-response rule as an example, or the 24-hour non-response example. Those rules are hard rules and they'll restrict you. We have a guy that was at $200,000 a month with DM ad. He got restricted out of nowhere for 3 months. 3 months, he's not gonna be able to run that strategy that was making him $200K a month. Vulnerability just doesn't really happen in a lot of these other funnels. It's more so happened in the DM ads than anywhere else. In addition to that, we've noticed that there's a lot of inconsistencies in either the setters or the AI technology that's available to use. So as an example, there's a software that's been used by a handful of our Inner Circle members. It's called BB9. And BB9 is essentially like an AI software that replicates what setters would otherwise do inside of your DMs. And there's, I'm sure, dozens of other softwares that are the exact same as that. But again, that's what we've seen some of our Inner Circle members use more than almost all the other softwares that are available. And I just want to be clear when I say this, that has been able to replicate what setters do quite well with a lot more consistency than what having human setters does. Human setters, we've noticed like a lot of inconsistencies where you'll have like, let's say 2 out of your 5 setters that are all-stars and 3 out of 5 that are pretty mediocre, and that weights down your total statistics and it causes a lot of inconsistency as a result in the strategy. It's like pretty exhausting to a degree as well to have to manage dozens of setters. If you actually did take this thing up to $1 million plus a month, you have to leverage the tech. But from what we've seen, I mean, right around that 200 to 300K level is just a monthly revenue ceiling for this strategy. So as a result, honestly, argumentatively, I think it's a B. But when you just argue it from a perspective of the chunk method and how it helps to hit $1 million months, and it does have a lot of consistency up to those hard ceilings that a lot of people run smack into. So I still believe that it's an A-tier strategy. Although I gotta be honest, I really do think this belongs in a B. However, there's just so many people that I know. It's one of those things that a majority of the time when it's run, it's working really well. So from that perspective, we're gonna place it in the A, but that was a challenging one. Okay, IG shoutouts. There is literally one person that I know that operates this strategy successfully. He's been a long-time Inner Circle member of mine, many years over. His name's Jeremy Moser. And Jeremy Moser and his business partner, Jan, upstanding people, do a phenomenal job with this. And it's actually quite comical. They have such a dominance over this specific service, and like they're inarguably the absolute best at it. And that's not even from a biased perspective of them being in my Inner Circle program, just to be clear. It's actually very non-biased. I would be quite direct in the instance and probably not even say their names in this video if I didn't genuinely believe in how great they are. I've done $1 million a month deals with these guys. They're phenomenal and they execute really well. And the other thing that's really funny is they have a handful, like a literal handful of other people that are competitors of theirs that have learned directly from these guys and then attempted to replicate what they do. And these competitors that they have, they're all, oddly enough, like really weird people, you know, that generally don't have, I don't know, like ethics, I guess would be the right word. They essentially just follow all of Jeremy's clients and just try to copy and replicate everything that Jeremy and his team do, which is interesting in itself. But I digress. I just want to be clear when I say this. This specific strategy entails you having really good content that through a shout out network of pages that have followers that are ideal customers of yours. And that's another really key skill here that like you really have to put some attention on is, do they have the network and the ability to actually put these pieces of content in front of the right people, okay? And in addition to that, can they just make great content in general that has virality potential that's gonna algorithmically get pushed in front of the right people without having to use the shout out network? That's something also to consider. However, it is a minority of the time that I see this strategy work, and it's really something that has like a strong limitation, kind of like DM ads. However, I will say, again, Jeremy Moser and his business partner Jan and their whole team over there, they are phenomenal and they specifically execute it really well. But a lot of the other people that ever try it, I rarely ever hear anybody saying they hit $1 million months doing it, you know? It's more so something that chunks like maybe a couple $100,000 onto what you do. And when some of these people out here, especially the ones that are using competitors or like, learning from Jeremy and then unfortunately not actually using Jeremy, just not experiencing the gigantic result that Jeremy and his organization are able to produce comparatively. So although revenue wise with what Jeremy does specifically, if it was just judged on Jeremy, I would definitely rank it an S tier funnel for sure. But it's not. It's based on, does a majority of the time this specific funnel work? Unfortunately, the answer is no. Does it work a minority of the time, and can it work really well? Yes, but a majority of the time when it does work a minority of the time, is it producing big results or just a couple $100,000? As a result, I'm putting it B tier. However, God bless you if you get the opportunity to work with Jeremy Moser, that belongs in a higher tier in the instance you use them. All right, lead magnets. So I feel like over the years, lead magnets have really died. Give or take the niche, right? A lot of high ticket product and service businesses, this is really just a point of friction now. Why have an opt-in, especially if you're selling to richer demographics, for something that you're gonna quote unquote like give away for free, try to earn some trust and some reciprocity and like warm people up? Why do that in the instance that you're gonna have people opt into it? It's argumentatively because you're gonna build a big list, you're gonna have a lot of people you can retarget in email and like they're eventually gonna buy. And again, for the right types of lead magnets, absolutely. You're 100% right in that regard. There is a high probability it can work for you if you have the right lead magnet, if it doesn't sabotage the high ticket result of getting them to the point where they're willing to buy the high ticket. The lead magnet has to be good, has to get a result, has to be implemented and activated at a high rate. And if not, it's just a point of friction, okay? And there are also, by far, like a very small minority of the time, does this funnel come up as something to do or to make sense of or to test and deploy. It is kind of like a funnel that's died, It's died and it's not been nearly as used or as effective as what it once was. So as a result of that, I'm gonna rank it relatively low, but I do just wanna give a fair shout out. I know with certainty that there are people out there who have lead magnet funnels and offers that are doing tremendously well and that do hit big numbers. But again, it's just not something that we're seeing in my world right now. And as a result of that, I'm gonna rank it a C. It's our first C in the list today, which is unfortunate because again, I've had periods in my career where lead magnets might be one of the very first things that can be executed, but it's not even in the big 5 nowadays, let alone the top, 5 or 10, you know what I mean? Okay, I have an ad strategy called the Hydra. It leverages lead forms. Lead forms leverage conditional logic right inside of the ad platform itself. Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok. You can run these on a lot of these different social platforms, and it is an in-platform lead application, okay? You are giving people the opportunity to, at the bare minimum, collect first, last, email, phone, any other combination of personal identifiers and demographic traits and characteristics. You can also ask questions that leverage conditional logic, which is what makes it awesome, just like an application funnel. You get the opportunity to ask questions, and then based on people's answers, you're gonna route them to either, hey, you're getting dropped out of the form completely because you answered it wrong, or the next set of questions relative to how they answered. Phenomenal funnel. One of my favorites, but again, a minority of the time do we get the opportunity to run this nowadays. The qualifier to be able to use this funnel is you have to have a killer sales team of real salespeople. It does not work nearly that well when it is ran with fat cat closers, okay? Fat cat closers are the people who only want to take qualified scheduled calls, nothing else. They barely follow up. They have not a lot of willingness to chase leads. Real salespeople in this case is just a term that I use to identify a salesperson that has extreme willingness to go out there, chase leads who had any level of interest, work them, dial them, text them, follow up with them relentlessly for eternity, leveraging both tech and automation and manual follow-up in order to do so. The Hydra is so good when the right variables and conditions exist. However, it is not something that we get to commonly use. It is, as a matter of fact, a very uncommon strategy as a result of a majority of sales teams just not having the right types of salespeople. Very unfortunate because it is a baller funnel that's worked really well for us. I'm gonna rank it a B, although I would love to, as a creator of the Hydra specifically and how we leverage lead forms, I would obviously love to rank it higher than that just as a personal bias. But again, a minority of the time are we able to deploy it. It has to circumstantially be the right set of variables and conditions to get it to work. Otherwise, it's just not worth it. All right, and the last one, we're gonna close it out with this, mini courses. So mini courses are arguably just a lead magnet, but they are a little different. Sometimes we've called this in the past trust funnels, and other times we just call it mini courses. This is essentially where you get somebody to opt in for a sequential series of videos that you label as a mini course. Sometimes people host this nowadays in WAP, school, Circle has been another place that people are hosting these things nowadays. Sometimes people host them on traditional platforms like ClickFunnels, Go High Level, Kajabi. You can host it wherever you'd like. Long story short, it's essentially just a sequence of videos that are unlocked as the person consumes the one prior to that. If actually consumed, there is a tremendous benefit to the framing that results, just like a webinar funnel or a challenge funnel or any other like content-based ad funnel that you would run. However, the downside to mini courses and trust funnels in general is the attrition. Like you get whatever quantity of people you get to opt in, and you just get this waterfall effect where you lose people at each additional step. On top of that, even worse, give or take how long each one of the individual videos are within it, you are not getting a high retention rate or consumption rate for every video consumed. So again, a minority of the time are we running this. It is something that doesn't even come up inside of the businesses that we work with that do $1 million months. It is so infrequently run. It is so infrequently tested. I want to be fair in saying, though, we do still have both Inner Circle members, occasionally Master Internet Marketing members as well, along with an occasional, very small minority of the time client that is running something like this. And if it works so unbelievably well. But dude, it's not working a majority of the time, you know? That attrition rate and having the willingness to like tweak the videos and change different components of the videos when that retention curve in the video is extremely low, there's just rarely ever a client that's like,
oh shit, that video is fucking up the entire chain of people getting to the other side. Like, let me go refilm that whole thing. Or, oh, that opening hook is bad. Like, let me go change it.
Just not a lot of willingness to do that. There are a handful of marketers, really good marketers at that, I want to give a shout out to, that do a phenomenal job at leveraging AI to be able to, like, tools like Descript is an example, or all the other plethora of the ones that exist nowadays, that you can go and plug the video into, retype some of the words that were said. It generates that person saying those words, so the client doesn't actually have to go refilm stuff to overcome some of those retention curve challenges. But again, dude, it's like not a majority of the time are people running that specific offer. As a result, I'm unfortunately gonna rank it right where the lead magnets are, in the C category. So in this updated S tier list video, nothing made it into the D category, surprisingly. I can't even necessarily think of one that might rank in there because I don't do things that are D tier. You know what I mean? And I hope I don't get exposure to the D tier list, and I hope you don't either. But I'll tell you where I do bias, that S tier and that A tier. These are some of the most common funnels that we run that have the most impact, and have the most leverage in getting our clients to the big dog numbers. And hey, maybe we can help you learn a lot about these individual funnels too in two different ways. First of all, my whole YouTube channel is dedicated to $1 million months and the lessons that have helped get our clients and Inner Circle members there. There is a tremendous amount of lessons, a lot on each one of these individual funnels. We have videos, mastery videos at that, on challenge funnels, webinars, call funnels, selling to rich people, advertising to rich people, book funnels, low ticket to high ticket, and a lot of these other ones that have worked. And I would love for you to take the opportunity to go and check some of those out. And of course, if you want the real stuff, the real juice, I do not hold back anything inside of my paid offers. I put you guys on game and give you guys extensive SOPs on funnels just like this, an extensive training library, and of course you get access to AI Jeremy in real time, and give or take which offer you get, of course you get access to real Jeremy too, to give you all the help that you need in order to go out there and get richer. So go ahead and check out the links down in the description if you're interested in any kind of paid support, and of course go check out the channel and subscribe if you are not already, so you can get put on game to all these things in a lot more detail than what we just covered here today. Go get richer. Talk soon.